What's up, Navigating Academia family? This is your buddy Dr. J. Phoenix Singh coming at you to be able to answer a valued viewer's question. Now, before we get started, you guys know that I love you, so please do me a huge favor in helping me to advance the mission of this channel to be able to help as many people as I can at all ages, in all fields, all over the globe, to be able to meet their unique academic challenge needs. And you can do that for me by hitting the like button. If you've watched even just one of our videos in the past and you've enjoyed it, maybe that's why you're watching this video, please do subscribe to the channel and recommend it to your friends, colleagues, and students. It helps us out a ton. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get to the question for today. Today's question comes from Ahmed. Ahmed, thank you so much for watching. Ahmed's question was on a video of mine, which for some reason is becoming a lot more popular now, which is called How to Prepare for an Academic Conference, 10 Essential Tips. Now, when I made that video, which if you can believe it was, I think like a year or 2 years ago, it was when I still had my big old bushy beard. Loved that beard. So what happened was that when I made that video, this was before the 2020 pandemic. And obviously, because of the 2020 pandemic, a lot of things have changed. And one of the things that's changed quite a bit is that a lot of conferences that used to be only in person are now either only online, i.e. only virtual, or only digital, some people would say. Or it's something where there's some sort of a hybrid insofar as, you could go in person, you could log in online and attend virtually. And remember what I always tell you guys, which is if you follow the money, you can tell a lot about academia. At the end of the day, if doing something in person is just as lucrative as doing something online, due to the minimized overhead, people will do things online. Makes sense. As somebody who used to organize conferences himself, I can tell you that it is wildly expensive to be able to get a physical space, let alone a convention center or something to be able to hold these conferences. And if you can do it only online, then what that means is that not only do you not have to deal with any of that, and not have to deal with things like catering or water bottles or pads and pens or any of these logistical nightmare type things, but at the same time, you can have people from all over the globe be your market instead of just folks who are willing to fly to a given location to be able to attend the conference. So at the end of the day, you can make a ton more money by doing things online. Always? No, but is there a potential for it? Absolutely there is. And so because of that, it's going to depend on the field that you're in and so forth. But this is Ahmed's question having to do with cases where there are only online options, okay? So here we go. Ahmed says, what if a conference is online only? Are there special tips and tricks? So remember, this was on a video about how to be able to prepare for academic conferences that I suppose in that case were in person. So in terms of things that you need to take into consideration when things are online, I want you guys to look. So number one, look at where I'm looking at you right now, right? You can tell that I'm looking at you in the eyes, right? But the thing is, I'm not actually looking at you in the eyes. If I were to look at you guys in the eyes in terms of where I can see myself right now, no joke, this is where it would be. Okay, and now let's say that there's a panel. So I'd be talking to this person, then talking to this person, and then talking to this person. It does not end up being a good look, me doing this, okay? Me looking directly into the camera, even though it's a bit awkward for me, because if I see people's live faces down here, I'm gonna wanna look, right? In actuality, if you wanna create a relationship with your audience, you need to make eye contact. This is an evolutionary prerogative. It's critical that you look directly into the camera, okay? So that's tip number one. And that doesn't matter if you're presenting or you're talking to a colleague or whatever it is, or you're just listening to a presentation. Whoever the presenter is, if they're not paying attention to looking into the camera and instead they're looking down, they're going to like to see somebody who's not also looking down, but is looking directly at them and makes them feel very engaged. I give a lot of online trainings. I actually used to run one of the largest online training companies in all of behavioral health internationally. And when I ran that company, this was a huge mistake that I would always see people making. And honestly, it was something that I had to correct myself because I was used to doing in-person trainings before then, okay? Special tips and tricks. If you're going to be giving a presentation, Ahmed, what the research literature suggests is that giving a presentation in person, so let's say that you've already got a slide deck and you're used to giving that thing in person, you should not automatically assume that that in-person set of presentation materials is automatically going to transfer well in terms of doing things online. The literature suggests that it does not. So you may need to actually redo, or if nothing else, revise certain parts of your presentation that maybe were designed to be optimized when presented in an in-person session. So examples of this could be exercises that you're trying to do, or animations on the slides, sometimes due to lag, trying to do too much heavy animation within the same slide. The amount of lag is really bad. So if you try to actually go through animations too quickly, I heavily animate slides. So I always have to take into consideration when I'm doing things online that because of lag, if I tap, it may be something where, because I'm tapping as I'm discussing what's on a slide, other people may be behind on my animations, so it's not going to couple well with what I'm saying. So you may want to minimize the number of animations you have because of that. A few other things to take into consideration. One of them is that in terms of your style, you need to be a lot more energetic than you would otherwise be. If you're in a room with people, people have a lot fewer distractions than if they're sitting at home or if they're sitting at the office. They got all their little gizmos and drinks and thingamajigs kind of sitting everywhere, okay? And so because of that, you need to be really captivating. A lot of energy. Make sure that you are engaging all three channels of emotion. And these are your facial affect, right? Your gestural affect and your paralingual affects, like your intonation. All three of these you need to use. If you need to work on any of those three things. I really had to work on several of those things, I can tell you right now. I used to have a really hard time holding eye contact with people until I was in my early 20s. When I was in my teens, which is when I went to my first conference, I was really shy, and that was very difficult for me. A lot of people would never think that I was shy, but I absolutely was. And so it was something where I had to learn through doing that. It was something that I needed to kind of practice. And in terms of getting to know people, this is another point for you, Ahmed. If you want to get to know somebody and it's through a digital conference, what you need to do, and I'm going to make another video on this shortly for Junan, who's another valued viewer of ours, who asked a kind of related question to this. But you need to make sure that if there's anybody that you want to meet at a digital conference, this is going to be so different than if you're meeting somebody in person. Essentially, you need to write them as soon as you conceivably can after you know that they're going to be at the conference or presenting at the conference. Now, you should assume that your rejection rate in terms of people either never writing you back or saying, sorry, I don't have any free time, is going to be overwhelmingly higher at a digital conference or a virtual conference relative to an in-person conference. At the in-person conference, they're physically there. And if they're physically there, they're physically going to be at the bar in the hotel. They're physically going to be at the socials that they may hold. They're physically going to be walking around the room that has, let's put it this way, all of us who go to these conferences, we go to a lot of booths and all, but let's be honest, we go to be able to take pens and to be able to get stress balls shaped like brains in psychology and all these little things. I remember one time my company got a bunch of letter openers. I swear to God, probably the best thing that came out of that company were those freaking letter openers. I still use them almost every day. They're freaking amazing, right? So yay, guy for letter openers. So that's the thing, is that you should expect that even if you write to people and say, it would really be a pleasure to be able to, have a Zoom meeting, to be able to chat more, etc. For them, honestly, most of the time speakers don't want to attend most sessions at conferences. They're just doing it because they feel awkward if they're just going to be sitting around somewhere, and then other people will notice that they're not going to sessions. So instead, they just pop into one that might be of interest to them. When in actuality, this ends up being a virtual conference, they just won't go anywhere, right? They'll go and give their session, or maybe they'll attend their student sessions, postdoc sessions, colleague sessions, But after that, they're not going anywhere else, right? So the idea that it's, someone who they don't know, who maybe you've never been in touch with them before and they want to have a Zoom meeting with you, if they say yes, I mean, keep that thing to under 30 minutes at all costs, unless there's some really extraordinary reason why it would be longer than 30 minutes. But really only plan on it being, I would argue, 20 to 30 minutes. And make sure you know exactly what to talk about, exactly what you want to say beforehand. You need to do a lot more prep for that kind of meeting because it's going to be a much more rigid structure of a meeting than is meeting somebody in person when people are at usually like some sort of a vacation location. So something like a Disney World or something like Puerto Rico or someplace abroad that, it's an international conference, so most people haven't been there before, and so forth. Per usual, if it's a digital conference, always have a backup, just like an in-person conference. Always have a backup of your presentation. This way, if your computer dies, make sure you got another computer with you at all costs. Make sure that your internet is rocking and rolling. If you have any internet difficulties, if it's been patchy recently, for the love of God, I want you to go to somebody else's office building and utilize their Wi-Fi. If it's really bad weather or something like that outside, if you have access to a mobile hotspot, like I have a mobile hotspot that I brought to Ukraine with me, that I bring with me on trips now, and so that's another great idea, is to be able to invest in a mobile hotspot. You can usually get a used one, so I use one called Solis X. Solis is S-O-L-I-S, and then the letter X, right? So you can get one online for like $65, and then you just pay either a day pass, which is like $10, something like that, or like, per gigabyte that you end up using. But it's one of these things where you just want to install as many fail-safes as you conceivably can. Obviously, practice your presentation, and after that, you should be fine. So that's my recommendation. I do recommend not falling for the thing of saying, I can wear a suit on top and pajama pants on the bottom. Don't fall for any of that stuff, please. Don't be silly. There's a certain feeling of dressing professionally. It brings out a certain side of you, says the guy in the frickin' otter shirt, but you get the idea, okay? So that's an important note though, okay, guys? Just make sure that if you're attending a conference digitally, that you accept a lower likelihood of getting to know new people, and at the same time, accept that you're going to have to modify your presentation or your presentation style non-verbally, including where you're looking with regards to eye contact, to be able to make the most of the experience. So hopefully that helped, Ahmed. Thank you so much for watching again. Make sure to ask your guys' questions below. If you're interested in one-on-one coaching with me, go ahead and contact me, book a session via the website below, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.